I was taken next to a city of cut stone and bedrock, a ferry crossing harbour bejewelled with light. The tallest city in the world, that much taller to a child, but it never made me feel small. Home was a place I found on either side of the handover, though I never found a need for roots, for fear of them paved over.
My name is Nashua Gallagher. I am a media professional and poet and author, and the founding director of Peel Street Poetry, which is a literary collective in Hong Kong, and we are actually in our 14th year, which is crazy to me, but in the best way possible. It was founded when I was 16. Now, strictly speaking, not many 16-year-olds are supposed to be in bars founding poetry evenings, but that's kind of what happened.
We started off being known as Poetry for Sad Drinkers and then realized that there's a bit of an optics problem there. So when we were brainstorming ideas and what we should call our collective, Peel Street Poetry just came very, very naturally. And even though we're no longer at Peel Street, it's really nice to kind of pay homage to where we started. So that's why, and that's the story.
It began one night with me and a teacher, Keith McMullen, who was here for a few years, and we met through that kind of Peel Street poetry crowd, the Peel Street crowd, and we both happened to write poetry, and we just showed up one day, and we decided the next Wednesday let's just come here and read our work, and so we did, and that was 14 years ago, and nearly every Wednesday afterwards. You don't see me here as often as I'd like to be, but there is always somebody from our community that still spans all sorts of people, local or immigrant or expat or in the many shades in between, who do all sorts of different things, but are kind of united by this one thing that we do, this weird poetry habit that we all have.
Tangled in that ancient, endless.
My name is Akin JJ. I'm a Canadian who has lived in Hong Kong for the past 14 years.
My fascination with Asia even predates my university career. One series that I particularly enjoyed, and I was reading this man's books as a 12-year-old, was James Clavell's novels. In the 80s, when I was reading these books, they filled my imagination with ancient landscapes. I loved reading about Hong Kong. I loved reading about the Star Ferry and about the islands and about the streets of Mongkok and about the lights in the harbor and Victoria Harbor itself. So, needless to say, my imagination was fired. So I give you Christchurch Lies in State. War has returned. White power in the air. White power in the sneer, white power everywhere as the rattle and ricochet of shells pierce fleeing flesh, shrill screams, shattering splinters from mosque stairs.
No, I've been writing for nearly 30 years, and I've been used to performance. But I think what performing poetry in Hong Kong has done is given a sense of community. And I think that community is important when you're an expat or a foreigner coming into a different place. You look for people who share your interests, share your passions, share your ideas. And I think in that sense, Peel Street Poetry and the other literary groups that I frequent help me adjust in Hong Kong better.
My parents moved me here when I was 1. Yes, I've been here a long time. And I mean, I've lived around Asia a little bit, but we always came back to Hong Kong. It's a place where you can be autonomous. And I've struggled with knowing my place, but I haven't really struggled with identity. I think I've struggled with the idea of an evolving identity, like not I've more so struggled with people asking me than anything that I've felt myself personally. So when people say, no, where are you really from? It's like that question has no basis for the rest of my life. Why can't I be from Hong Kong? And it's interesting. So my kids are half Sri Lankan, half Irish ethnically. You know, I don't refer to them as half. I tell them to think of themselves as double. They can claim full agency to both sides of the heritage, as well as where they were born Hong Kong, if that's who they want to be. As long as they're contributing, then why can't they be from here or anywhere else they go and contribute to?
I think Hong Kong has always been a port town and has a long history of different people coming here for trade, for business opportunities, as a gateway into China. I feel like, unlike other countries in the world, there are provisions for expats to live here long term. You can get your PR, you know, and you'd be considered a Hong Kong resident, a permanent resident. However, I don't think it is possible to be truly, completely accepted and integrated because Hong Kong's such a transient place.
Don't worry, the key is pretending to understand it.
My name is Henrik Hood. I'm the MC and director of Peel Street Poetry. I've been involved in the poetry scene here for maybe 6 years at this point. I've been emceeing this event for 5 years. I moved to Hong Kong when I was 8 years old. My parents actually moved out here. My mom was a professor of Japanese and she was employed by Hong Kong University. So we moved out. I'm from Denmark originally. I didn't speak any English, so eventually I got placed in international school and bumbled my way through starting to learn English. And yeah, just grew up in Hong Kong, grew up through the international school system. Kind of a very normal, I guess, expat Hong Kong experience. You get this notion that poetry has these certain boundaries that is the poetry you see in high school, right? It's like about flowers, and it's about love, and it's about anyone's real experience, like growing up in Hong Kong. And some of my favorite poems that I hear at open mics kind of break through that. Like there's a poem I always remember, it's called Flowers by a friend of mine. He drops in a reference to like Fankle ads at the start of movies, which like anyone who's lived in Hong Kong for a significant amount of time knows exactly what he means. And you get this thought like, oh, I didn't know you're kind of allowed to talk about that stuff in poetry. But that is a small little nuance of what growing up in Hong Kong would be like. And you can absolutely talk about that.
Give it up for Jason.
My name is Dr. Jason Lee. I'm a lecturer at the Department of English Language and Literature at Hong Kong Baptist University. I've been in Hong Kong since 2006, and my first participation with Peel Street Poetry was in that year. A lot of people have called Hong Kong a kind of cultural desert, and I think they're right and they're wrong. Hong Kong is a very literate society, but it's not a very literary one. But I think, again, you know, Hong Kong is a global city as well as a local one. So there are facets of the city that do appreciate and do represent certain forms of literature. And these spaces are becoming more varied, I think, as we move into the 21st century and beyond. And I think what Peel Street Poetry, again, is trying to do is it's trying to show that you can have even a predominantly expatriate-based English language poetry collective who care deeply about Hong Kong, who identify themselves as partly Hong Konger.
Hong Kong is a crossroads. Hong Kong that lives large in the imagination. And for now, it's where I live. It's where I have community and lots of friends. We don't know how long this is going to last. You know, hopefully it lasts a long time. But for now, it's the place I live.
I don't know. It's a place where I live. I like it. I grew up here. Home, maybe? I don't know. I don't want to say it. It sounds very cliche and empty.
I will always consider myself as a Hong Konger, but I may not be in Hong Kong forever. part of it has been having this voice at the back of my head that says that, you know, we might leave, we might continue this nomadic existence somewhere else. But I think because of that, you do tend to make the best of it wherever you are living. And I think Peel Street Poetry is a testament to it.